Commander Sarah Chun had always been told she was too aggressive, too unpredictable, too human for Deep Space Command. The Galactic Council had made it clear that humanity's acceptance into their civilized alliance came with conditions, strict protocols, careful diplomacy, and, above all, never letting their primitive warrior instinct surface. They should have listened to the warnings in their own files. Because when the Zephyrian Empire decided to test humanity's resolve by attacking a defenseless colony ship filled with children, they forgot one crucial detail about the species they had been so carefully managing. Humans don't just fight back when cornered. They wage war. And Sarah Chun wasn't just any human. She was the daughter of Earth's greatest military strategist, trained in tactics that predated first contact, carrying the genetic memory of a species that had clawed its way to the top of its planet's food chain not through superior technology, but through sheer, relentless determination to survive. The moment her fingers touched the launch controls of humanity's first true warship, a vessel the Council had forbidden them to build, the galaxy was about to learn why every species in human history that had tried to wipe them out was now extinct. The aliens were about to realize their mistake. And, by then, it would be far too late. The emergency klaxon pierced through the diplomatic quarters of the Terran embassy like a blade through silk. Commander Sarah Chun bolted upright from her meditation mat, her enhanced reflexes already calculating threat vectors before her conscious mind fully processed the sound. 3 short bursts, followed by 2 long ones. Colony ship under attack. Her bare feet hit the cold metal floor as she sprinted toward the command center, her loose meditation robes billowing behind her. The corridors of the embassy buzzed with activity as staff members rushed to their emergency stations. Ambassador Williams emerged from his quarters, his usually immaculate diplomatic uniform hastily thrown over pajamas. "Commander Chun," he called out, struggling to match her pace. "The Galactic Council has issued strict orders. We are to maintain our position and allow their peacekeeping forces to handle this situation." Sarah didn't slow down. "Which colony ship, Ambassador?" "The New Horizon, carrying 1,500 civilians from the Mars colonies to New Terra 7, mostly families with children." Williams grabbed her arm. "Sarah, please. The Council has been very clear about humanity's role in this alliance. We cannot be seen as aggressors." She stopped abruptly, turning to face him. Williams had always been a good man, dedicated to maintaining the fragile peace that kept humanity in the Galactic Council's good graces. But he didn't understand what Sarah knew in her bones. That peace built on submission wasn't peace at all. "How many Zephyrian ships?" she asked. "Intelligence reports indicate 3 heavy cruisers and a command dreadnought." Sarah's jaw tightened. The New Horizon was a civilian transport with minimal defensive capabilities. Against 4 Zephyrian warships, it might as well be made of paper. Response time for Council peacekeepers? 14 hours. The New Horizon will be debris in 2. She resumed her sprint toward the command center, leaving Williams behind. The ambassador's protests echoed down the corridor, but Sarah had already shifted into a mindset that her Council-approved psychiatric evaluations had warned about. The evaluations that had kept her from commanding anything larger than an embassy security detail. The command center was chaos. Lieutenant Commander Torres looked up from his station as Sarah entered, relief flooding his features. "Ma'am, the Zephyrians have disabled the New Horizons engines. They're demanding surrender and threatening to execute civilians if their terms aren't met. What do they want? Complete access to human terraforming technology, including the atmosphere processors we've been developing. They claim humanity owes reparations for our destructive expansion into their ancestral space." Sarah studied the tactical display showing the positions of the ships. The New Horizon hung helpless in space while the Zephyrian vessels maintained a perfect formation around it. Classical Zephyrian tactics, they preferred intimidation and overwhelming force to actual combat. Most species in the galaxy had learned to simply comply rather than face the Empire's wrath. But humans weren't most species. "Ma'am," Torres continued, "we have a problem. The closest Council peacekeeping fleet is currently dealing with a border dispute in the Andromeda Spiral. Even if they departed immediately, They won't arrive in time. Sarah moved to the primary console and began pulling up classified files that technically required council oversight to access. Torres, I need you to clear the command center of all non-essential personnel. Mom. Everyone except core tactical staff. Now, as the room emptied, Sarah input her personal authorization codes and watched as previously hidden files appeared on the main screen. Project Prometheus, humanity's most classified military development program. The project the Council had explicitly forbidden after discovering its existence during routine inspections. Dr. Elizabeth Reyes materialized as a hologram beside the console, her recorded message beginning immediately. If you're accessing this file, Commander Chun, it means the situation has deteriorated beyond acceptable parameters. The Prometheus represents humanity's answer to the technological gap between our civilization and potential threats in the galaxy. The hologram gestured toward the tactical display, where the outline of a sleek, predatory vessel appeared. Unlike the standardized peacekeeping ships approved by the Galactic Council, the Prometheus was designed using principles from human military history, specifically the concept of asymmetric warfare. While our allies focus on defensive capabilities and diplomatic solutions, we have created something else entirely. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as the ship's specifications scrolled across the screen. The Prometheus wasn't just a warship. It was a concentrated expression of humanity's evolutionary advantages. Speed over armor, aggression over caution, adaptability over rigid doctrine. The ship is currently in the hidden facility within the asteroid belt, Dr. Reyes continued. All systems are operational and ready for deployment. However, Commander, you should understand that activating the Prometheus will likely result in immediate expulsion from the Galactic Council. Humanity will be on its own. Torres whistled softly as he studied the ship's capabilities. Ma'am, this thing is armed with weapons I've never even heard of. Quantum disruptors, gravitational mines, something called a Hellfire torpedo array. Human engineering, Sarah said quietly. We've had 5,000 years to perfect the art of war. The Council's peacekeeping doctrine assumes that all conflicts can be resolved through superior firepower and intimidation. But we learned a long time ago that the smaller, faster predator often beats the larger one. The communications system crackled to life, carrying the harsh voice of the Zephyrian commander. Human vessel, you will relay our demands to your government immediately. We require complete technological specifications for your terraforming equipment within 1 hour, or we will begin executing civilians. We will start with the children to demonstrate our resolve. Sarah's hands stilled over the console. Around the room, her staff exchanged grim looks. The Zephyrians had just made a critical error in judgment. They had threatened human children while believing that humanity would respond according to Council protocols. Ma'am, Torres said carefully, the Council's response would be to negotiate. They might even agree to hand over the terraforming technology to save lives. The Council isn't human. Sarah began entering the activation codes for Project Prometheus. Torres, open a channel to the hidden facility. Priority Alpha authorization. The screen flickered, then showed the interior of what appeared to be a natural cave carved into an asteroid. But Sarah could see the sophisticated machinery hidden behind the rough rock walls, and the sleek hull of a ship that looked nothing like the peaceful vessels humans were supposed to build. Chief Engineer Martinez appeared on screen, his weathered face breaking into a knowing smile. Commander Chun, I've been monitoring the situation. The Prometheus is ready for immediate deployment. Time to operational status? She's been ready since the moment we finished construction. All we needed was someone with the authorization to take her out of here. Sarah looked around the command center one more time. Every face showed the same grim determination she felt. They were about to cross a line that would change humanity's relationship with the galaxy forever. But children were dying, and the Council's peaceful approach would only encourage more aggression from species like the Zephyrians. Ambassador Williams to Commander Chun. The intercom crackled. I have the Galactic Council's diplomatic representative on the line. They're offering to negotiate directly with the Zephyrians. Sarah picked up the communicator. Tell the council that humanity appreciates their offer, but we'll be handling this situation ourselves. Sarah, please reconsider. If you take unauthorized military action, it will confirm every negative stereotype about human aggression. We'll lose our place in the galactic community. Better to lose our place than our soul. She cut the connection and turned back to the screen showing the Prometheus. Chief Martinez, prep the ship for combat operations. I'll be there within the hour. Ma'am, Torres interrupted. Regulations require council approval for any military vessel to leave port. We're not leaving port, Lieutenant Commander. We're launching from a private facility in international space. Sarah began downloading the tactical files to her personal device. As far as the official record is concerned, the Prometheus doesn't exist. The main screen now showed the New Horizon surrounded by Zephyrian ships. As they watched, one of the cruisers fired a warning shot across the civilian vessel's bow, close enough to register on their shields. Inside that ship were 1,500 people who had trusted humanity's government to protect them during their journey to a new world. The Zephyrians are counting on our compliance, Sarah continued. They've studied our diplomatic history, our council-approved response protocols. They expect us to negotiate, to compromise, to find a peaceful solution that costs us something valuable in exchange for the lives of our civilians. She brought up the personnel files of the New Horizons passengers. Families from the Mars colonies, seeking a better life on a world where their children could run under open skies. Scientists, teachers, engineers, artists, the best of humanity venturing into the unknown with hope and courage. They don't understand that humans weren't built for peace, Sarah said, her voice hardening. We were built for survival. And sometimes survival requires violence that civilized species consider unthinkable. The tactical display updated with new information. The Zephyrian dreadnought was powering up its main weapons array, preparing to make good on their threat. Time was running out. Sarah turned to address her staff directly. I need volunteers for a mission that will likely end your careers in the diplomatic corps. Anyone who participates will be considered complicit in violating council regulations regarding military action. Every hand in the room went up without hesitation. Torres, you have the embassy command. Maintain all normal diplomatic functions and keep the ambassador happy. As far as anyone knows, I'm taking a personal shuttle to investigate industrial facilities in the asteroid belt. Yes, ma'am. And, Commander? Torres stood at attention. Give them hell. Sarah Chun had spent her entire adult life following rules designed to keep humanity safely integrated into a galactic community that barely tolerated their presence. She had attended diplomatic functions where other species discussed humans like dangerous children who needed constant supervision. She had bitten her tongue during council sessions where humanity's historical military achievements were dismissed as primitive barbarism. But now, walking toward the shuttle bay with the activation codes for humanity's most advanced warship burning in her memory, she felt something she hadn't experienced since her academy days training in combat simulations. She felt like herself. The shuttle's engines hummed to life as she settled into the pilot's seat. Through the viewports, she could see the peaceful stars that had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Soon, they would witness something new, the moment when humanity stopped pretending to be something it wasn't and embraced the nature that had carried them from caves to the stars. The Zephyrians were about to learn why no enemy of humanity had ever survived long enough to regret their choice. As the shuttle cleared the embassy's docking bay and set course for the hidden facility, Sarah Chun smiled for the first time in months. The galaxy was about to remember that humans had not reached the stars through diplomacy. They had fought their way here one victory at a time. The asteroid facility appeared unremarkable from the outside, just another mining operation in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. But as Sarah's shuttle approached the hidden docking bay, massive blast doors concealed within the asteroid surface slid open to reveal a gleaming interior that looked more like a military shipyard than a mining station. Chief Engineer Martinez was waiting for her in the docking bay, his gray hair disheveled and his coveralls stained with the evidence of last-minute preparations. Behind him, the Prometheus hung in its launch cradle like a sleeping predator. The ship was beautiful in a way that made Sarah's breath catch. Sleek black hull that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, weapon ports that remained closed until needed, and an overall design that spoke of speed and lethality rather than the bulky defensive doctrine favored by Council ships. "She's a beauty, isn't she?" Martinez said as they walked beneath the ship's hull. "We've been working on her for 3 years, using every advance in human engineering we could develop without Council oversight. The hull is composed of a titanium carbon nanotube composite that can withstand direct hits from Council-class plasma cannons. The engines use a modified fusion drive that generates thrust ratios impossible with standard peacekeeping ship designs." Sarah ran her hand along the hull, feeling the subtle texture of the advanced materials. "What about weapons?" "That's where it gets interesting." Martinez led her to a lift that would take them inside the ship. "We couldn't use standard Council weapons technology because it's all designed around their doctrine of minimum necessary force. So we went back to human military principles and adapted them for space warfare." The interior of the Prometheus was cramped compared to the spacious bridges of diplomatic vessels, but every surface was covered with tactical displays and weapon controls. The design prioritized function over comfort, efficiency over aesthetics. It felt like stepping into the cockpit of a fighter plane scaled up for space combat. "The primary weapons are quantum disruptors," Martinez continued as they entered the bridge. "They work by destabilizing the molecular bonds in enemy hulls at the quantum level. Essentially, they cause the target ship to tear itself apart from the inside out." Sarah settled into the captain's chair, which adjusted automatically to fit her perfectly. The tactical displays came online immediately, showing her the positions of all ships within a 100,000-kilometer radius. "What about the Zephyrian Dreadnought?" "Their ships are heavily armored. That's what these are for." Martinez activated a display showing torpedo-like weapons in the ship's launch bays. Hellfire torpedoes. Each one contains a miniaturized fusion warhead surrounded by a cloud of metallic hydrogen. When they detonate, they create a brief artificial star that burns at temperatures hot enough to vaporize any known hull material. The communications system chimed with an incoming message from the diplomatic corps. Ambassador Williams appeared on the screen, his face showing the strain of the past hour. "Sarah, the Zephyrians have given us 15 minutes to comply with their demands. The Council is pressuring us to hand over the terraforming technology. Status of the New Horizon. They've taken 50 civilians hostage and moved them to the Dreadnought. They're broadcasting execution threats on all channels." Williams paused, looking older than his 60 years. "Sarah, if you're planning what I think you're planning, I need to officially order you to stand down." "Understood, Ambassador. Consider your official order noted." She cut the connection and turned to Martinez. "How long to reach the Zephyrian position?" "With the Prometheus's speed capabilities, we can be there in 40 minutes. But, Sarah, you should know what you're getting into. This ship was designed to be operated by a full crew of 20 specialists. You'll be running it alone." "I won't be alone." Sarah brought up the ship's AI interface, and immediately a holographic figure appeared beside her chair, a stern-looking woman in military uniform with the bearing of a career officer. "Commander Chun," the AI said in crisp, professional tones. "I am General Patricia Hayes, Strategic AI for the Prometheus. I am programmed with the combined tactical knowledge of humanity's greatest military leaders, from Sun Tzu to Alexander the Great to Admiral Yi Sun Sin. I am ready to assist you in combat operations." Martinez grinned. "We programmed her with personality profiles from history's most successful military minds. She's not just a tactical computer. She's a virtual war council." "General Hayes," Sarah said, "analyze the current tactical situation." The AI's image moved to stand beside the main tactical display, which updated to show the positions of the Zephyrian ships around the disabled New Horizon. The enemy has positioned themselves in a classic intimidation formation designed to maximize psychological impact rather than tactical efficiency. Their dreadnought holds the center position with the 3 cruisers arranged in a triangular support pattern. Their weaknesses? Several. First, they have assumed a static defensive posture, which leaves them vulnerable to high-speed attack runs. Second, they have divided their attention between threatening the civilian vessel and watching for Council peacekeeping ships approaching from conventional vectors. They are not scanning for small, fast-moving threats from the asteroid belt. Sarah studied the formation. The Zephyrians were using standard Empire tactics, overwhelming force designed to break enemy morale before a shot was fired. It worked well against species that valued preservation of life above all else. But humans had learned long ago that sometimes survival required accepting losses to prevent even greater casualties. Third, the AI continued. Their weapons are optimized for ship-to-ship combat against vessels of similar size and defensive capability. They are not prepared to engage a fast-moving target using asymmetric tactics. Launch sequence initiated, Sarah announced, and the ship began to hum with power as its systems came online. Through the bridge viewports, she could see the asteroid facility's launch bay opening to reveal the star field beyond. Martinez returned to the facility and maintain communications blackout until this operation is concluded. Sarah, the engineer's voice was serious now. You know there's no going back from this. Once you fire those weapons, humanity's relationship with the Galactic Council changes forever. It changed the moment the Zephyrians threatened our children. The Prometheus slid out of the launch bay with barely a whisper of engine noise. The ship's stealth systems engaged automatically, bending light and energy around the hull to make it virtually invisible to standard sensors. Sarah felt the familiar weight of command settle onto her shoulders as the tactical displays updated with real-time information. General Hayes, estimated time to weapons range? At current speed and trajectory, 37 minutes. However, Commander, I should point out that the Zephyrians have just transmitted another ultimatum. They are threatening to begin executions in 10 minutes unless their demands are met. Sarah's hands tightened on the flight controls. 10 minutes wasn't enough time to reach the enemy position, but it might be enough time to get their attention. Can we transmit a message to the Zephyrian commander without revealing our position? Affirmative. The ship's communication array includes quantum encryption technology that will make source identification impossible. Open a channel. The main screen flickered and showed the interior of the Zephyrian dreadnought's bridge. The commander was a tall, reptilian creature with scales that shifted color according to emotion, currently showing the deep red of anger and the gold highlights of anticipated victory. Behind him, Sarah could see human prisoners and restraints, including several children who looked terrified but defiant. I am Commander Sarah Chun of the Terran Defense Corps, she said, her voice carrying the authority of her father's military training and her own years of diplomatic experience. You have committed an act of war against humanity by attacking a civilian vessel and taking hostages. The Zephyrian commander's scales rippled with amusement. Commander Chun, your diplomatic credentials indicate that you command only an embassy security detail. You have no authority to negotiate on behalf of your species. I'm not here to negotiate. Then, you are here to surrender your terraforming technology in exchange for these lives? A wise decision. Your council representatives were not so accommodating. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. I'm here to give you an opportunity to release the hostages and withdraw from this system before I destroy your ships. The Zephyrian scales shifted to a pattern Sarah's diplomatic training told her indicated shocked disbelief. You threaten me with a single diplomatic shuttle? Human arrogance knows no bounds. I'm not in a shuttle. The tactical display showed that the Prometheus was now close enough for active scanning. Sarah gave the order, and the ship's sensors reached out to thoroughly examine the Zephyrian formation. Immediately, alarm klaxons began sounding on the enemy bridge as their instruments detected the scanning beams. General Hayes, were their sensors telling them? Their equipment cannot identify our ship class or weapons configuration. They're detecting energy signatures that do not match any known Council vessel design. Commander, the enemy is experiencing significant confusion. On the main screen, the Zephyrian commander was shouting orders to his crew while studying readouts that clearly made no sense to him. Sarah could see the moment when tactical confusion began to turn into something approaching fear. Commander Chun, the alien said, his voice more controlled now, you will identify your vessel immediately and state your intentions. My vessel is the TDS Prometheus. My intentions are to retrieve human citizens from your custody and ensure that the Zephyrian Empire understands the consequences of threatening civilians under human protection. The enemy commander's scales shifted to a pattern that indicated aggressive posturing, but Sarah's diplomatic training detected underlying uncertainty. We have studied human military capabilities extensively. Your species possesses no technology that poses a threat to Empire vessels. You studied the ships we were allowed to build under Council oversight, Sarah replied. This isn't one of those ships. The Prometheus was now close enough for visual contact, and Sarah ordered the stealth systems deactivated. On the enemy bridge, she could see crew members pointing at their displays in obvious alarm as the human warship appeared on their sensors like a predator emerging from shadow. Impossible, the Zephyrian commander whispered, staring at readings that contradicted everything his intelligence services had told him about human capabilities. No human vessel possesses such speed or energy signatures. Release the hostages now, and I'll allow your ships to leave this system intact. The commander's scales shifted through several color patterns as he processed this development. Sarah knew she was watching him, trying to reconcile his expectations of human behavior with the reality of an unknown warship that had approached his position without being detected. You will not fire on us, he finally said, his voice regaining confidence. Humans are bound by Council regulations regarding military action. You cannot attack Empire vessels without proper authorization. You're right, Sarah said calmly. I can't attack Empire vessels. She could see relief beginning to show in the aliens' color patterns. But I can destroy pirates who have attacked human civilians in neutral space. The Zephyrian commander's scales went completely white, the color of terror in his species. Sarah had just invoked one of the oldest principles of space law. Any vessel that attacked civilians forfeited the protection of their home government and could be engaged as pirates by any military force. General Hayes, Sarah said quietly, target their engines. Let's see how committed they are to this course of action. Targeting solution acquired. Quantum disruptors locked onto the lead cruiser's engine section. Fire. The bridge shuddered slightly as the Prometheus launched its first weapon in anger. On the tactical display, a beam of coherent energy reached out across space and touched the Zephyrian cruiser's hull. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, the enemy ship's entire rear section simply ceased to exist, dissolved at the molecular level as quantum forces tore its structure apart. The cruiser began tumbling helplessly through space, no longer capable of propulsion or offensive action. Weapons impact confirmed, General Hayes reported. Target is disabled, but intact. Minimal casualties projected. On the enemy bridge, Sarah could see crew members staring at their instruments in disbelief. The weapon that had just destroyed their escort's engines was unlike anything in their tactical databases. The Zephyrian commander's scales had settled into a pattern Sarah had never seen before. A complex mixture of colors that her diplomatic training suggested indicated a state of profound shock. That was a demonstration, she announced. You now have 5 minutes to release all human hostages and begin withdrawal from this system. If you refuse, I will disable your remaining ships and take the prisoners by force. This is impossible, the commander repeated, but his voice carried less conviction than before. No human technology could. He stopped speaking as his tactical officer handed him a datapad. Sarah watched his expression change as he studied whatever information his crew had gathered about the attack. Commander Chun, he said finally, we require time to consider your proposal. You have 5 minutes. Use them wisely. Sarah cut the connection and settled back in her command chair. Around her, the ship's systems hummed with readiness, weapon ports armed, and targeting systems locked onto the remaining Zephyrian vessels. General Hayes, analysis of enemy response. The Zephyrian commander is currently consulting with his tactical staff and attempting to contact Empire Command for instructions. However, their nearest support fleet is 6 hours away at maximum speed. He is beginning to understand that his force is isolated and facing an unknown threat. Sarah nodded. The next few minutes would determine whether this confrontation escalated into a shooting war or ended with the safe return of human hostages. But either way, the galaxy was about to learn that humanity had not abandoned its capacity for violence. It had simply been waiting for the right moment to remind everyone why they had survived the climb to the stars. The 5 minutes stretched like hours as Sarah watched the tactical display track the Zephyrian ships. The disabled cruiser continued its helpless tumble through space, its crew undoubtedly working frantically to restore some kind of propulsion. The remaining 3 ships held their positions around the new horizon, but she could see subtle changes in their formation that suggested growing uncertainty. General Hayes, what are they discussing? The AI's hologram flickered as she processed intercepted communications. The Zephyrian commander is receiving conflicting instructions from multiple sources. His tactical officer is recommending immediate withdrawal based on analysis of our weapon capabilities. His political officer is insisting that retreat would bring dishonor to the Empire. Most interesting, however, is a communication from what appears to be a Zephyrian intelligence operative embedded with the Galactic Council. What kind of communication? The operative is warning that human diplomatic records may have been deliberately falsified to conceal military capabilities. He suggests that this incident represents a carefully planned revelation designed to shift the balance of power in the galaxy. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Are they right? Unknown. However, the psychological profile suggests that you are acting independently rather than following predetermined orders. The Zephyrians appear to be attributing greater strategic planning to this situation than actually exists. The communication system chimed with an incoming message from the New Horizon. Captain Rodriguez appeared on screen, his face showing relief and concern in equal measure. Commander Chun, we've been monitoring the situation. Are you really planning to take on 4 Empire ships with a single vessel? The odds are better than they appear, Captain. What's your status? Engine damage is reparable, but we need several hours to complete repairs. The Zephyrians have released most of our passengers, but they're still holding 50 people aboard their dreadnought as insurance. Sarah studied the tactical display more carefully. The Zephyrian dreadnought was a massive vessel, easily 4 times the size of the Prometheus, with heavy armor and weapon systems designed to destroy other capital ships. In a direct confrontation, it would normally be suicide for a smaller vessel to engage such a target. But the Prometheus wasn't designed for direct confrontation. General Hayes, analysis of dreadnought vulnerabilities? The vessel follows standard Zephyrian design principles, prioritizing durability and firepower over maneuverability. Primary weakness is the command tower, which extends above the main hull to provide better sensor coverage. Secondary weakness is the engine assembly, which is heavily armored but requires multiple cooling systems that create thermal signatures. Could we disable the dreadnought without destroying it? Possible but risky. The Hellfire torpedoes would cause too much damage. However, a concentrated quantum disruptor assault on the cooling systems might force an emergency shutdown of their main engines and life support, compelling them to release the hostages. The communication system activated again, showing the Zephyrian commander. His scales had shifted to a more aggressive pattern, but Sarah could see the uncertainty in his posture. Commander Chun, we have reached a decision. The Empire cannot yield to human demands without proper negotiation through diplomatic channels. However, we are prepared to transfer the hostages to your vessel in exchange for a formal guarantee that you will not pursue our ships during withdrawal. Not acceptable, Sarah replied immediately. Full withdrawal first, then prisoner exchange. Impossible. We cannot return to Empire space with no concessions to show for this encounter. Our honor demands at least the appearance of successful negotiation. Sarah muted the communication and turned to the AI. General Hayes, what are they really afraid of? Analysis suggests that the Zephyrian commander fears the political consequences of retreating without achieving any objectives more than he fears the immediate military threat. In Empire culture, a commander who returns empty-handed from a confrontation is often executed as an example to others. So he's trapped between certain death from his own people and uncertain death from us. Essentially correct. He is attempting to find a face-saving compromise that allows him to survive both threats. Sarah considered the situation. The Zephyrians had made a critical error by taking hostages in the first place, but now they were compounded that error by refusing to release them. Every minute that passed increased the likelihood that other Empire ships would arrive to complicate the situation. Commander, the AI continued, I am detecting increased energy signatures from the Dreadnought. They appear to be charging their main weapon systems. On the tactical display, Sarah could see the massive ship's gun ports opening as it prepared for combat. The Zephyrian commander had apparently decided that his best chance of survival lay in destroying the human ship and returning home with proof of a military victory. Open channel to all Zephyrian vessels, Sarah ordered. When the connection established, she could see that the commander had been joined by several other officers, all wearing the elaborate battle armor that indicated they had committed to combat. Commander Chun, he announced formally, the Zephyrian Empire does not negotiate with terrorists. You will surrender immediately or face the consequences. I gave you an opportunity for peaceful resolution, Sarah replied. You chose war instead. She cut the connection and turned to the tactical display. General Hayes, implement attack pattern alpha. Target their weapons systems first, engine second, command structure third. Acknowledged. Initiating evasive maneuvers and beginning attack run. The Prometheus suddenly accelerated to speeds that would have been impossible for any Council-approved vessel, its advanced engines pushing the ship well beyond normal safety limits. On the tactical display, Sarah watched the range close rapidly as her ship approached the Zephyrian formation. The first indication that the enemy had realized their mistake came when their initial weapon salvos missed completely, their targeting computers unable to track a vessel moving at the speeds the Prometheus was capable of achieving. The quantum disruptors fired in return, and the lead cruiser's main gun turrets simply vanished, dissolved at the molecular level. Impact on Target 1, General Hayes reported. Enemy vessel has lost primary offensive capability. The Dreadnought's massive main cannon swiveled to track the Prometheus, but the human ship was already moving in an evasive pattern that took it between the Zephyrian vessels, using their own formation against them. The second cruiser fired, and the energy beam passed harmlessly through empty space where the Prometheus had been moments before. Target 2 engaged, the AI announced as quantum disruptors found their mark again. Enemy engines disabled. Sarah felt the familiar rush of combat as her ship danced through the enemy formation, striking with surgical precision while avoiding the devastating return fire that would have destroyed any conventional vessel. This was what humans have been designed for. Not the careful, measured responses favored by the Council, but the swift, decisive violence that had carried them from Earth to the stars. The third cruiser managed to score a glancing hit on the Prometheus's hull, but the advanced armor held without significant damage. In response, Sarah ordered a Hellfire torpedo launch that struck the enemy vessel's engine section and created a brief miniature star that left the ship drifting powerless. 3 cruisers disabled, General Hayes reported. The Dreadnought is attempting to withdraw while maintaining its hold on hostages. Sarah studied the tactical situation. The massive enemy ship was indeed pulling back, but slowly, its captain apparently hoping to escape while keeping the human prisoners as insurance against pursuit. It was a reasonable strategy against a conventional opponent. But the Prometheus wasn't conventional. General Hayes, Can you calculate a firing solution that would disable their engines without harming the hostages? Working. Solution found. The Dreadnought's engine cooling systems are located in the lower hull, well away from crew quarters and holding areas. A precisely placed quantum disruptor burst could cause a cascade failure that would force emergency shutdown. Do it. The Prometheus moved like a striking serpent, accelerating past the Dreadnought and rolling to bring its weapons to bear on the target's most vulnerable point. The quantum disruptors fired with mathematical precision, and suddenly, the massive ship's engines went dark as safety systems engaged to prevent catastrophic overload. Target disabled, the AI confirmed. The Dreadnought is now adrift and defenseless. Sarah opened a communication channel to the enemy commander. On screen, she could see that the Zephyrian's bridge was now lit only by emergency lighting, and his crew was working frantically at their stations. "Commander," she said calmly, "you now have a choice. Release the hostages immediately, and I'll provide assistance with repairs to your life support systems. Refuse, and I'll board your ship and take them by force." The alien scales had shifted to colors that indicated complete defeat. "Human, you do not understand what you have done. The Empire will not tolerate this humiliation. They will send fleets to punish your entire species for this action. Let them come." Sarah's response was delivered with such quiet confidence that the Zephyrian commander actually stepped back from his screen. In that moment, he was seeing something that few aliens had ever witnessed, a human who was not afraid of war, but rather eager for it. "The prisoners will be transferred to your vessel," he said finally. "But know that you have doomed your species with your actions here today. We've been doomed before. We survived." 20 minutes later, shuttlecraft began ferrying the 50 human hostages from the Dreadnought to the Prometheus. Sarah watched through the ship's cameras as families were reunited, and children who had maintained their courage throughout the ordeal finally allowed themselves to cry with relief. Captain Rodriguez contacted her from the New Horizon as the last shuttle docked. "Commander Chun, our engines are now operational. We're ready to continue to New Terra 7 whenever you give the word. Proceed with your original flight plan, Captain. The Prometheus will provide escort until you're safely in Council space." As the civilian transport began moving again, Sarah turned her attention to the crippled Zephyrian ships. The 4 vessels hung in space like broken toys, their crews working to restore basic life support and communications. "General Hayes, transmit detailed specifications for temporary life support patches to the Zephyrian vessels. I don't want anyone dying out here." Acknowledged. "However, Commander, I should point out that we are receiving multiple incoming communications from various sources." The main screen split to show several different callers. Ambassador Williams appeared in one window, his expression mixing relief with profound concern. The Galactic Council's emergency session was displayed in another, with representatives from dozens of species engaged in what appeared to be heated debate. Most surprising, however, was the third window, which showed Admiral Morrison from Earth's Defense Command. "Sarah," the Admiral said, his weathered face showing a mixture of pride and apprehension, "I've been monitoring the situation from Earth Command. Congratulations on a successful operation, but we need to talk immediately about the political ramifications." Sarah chose to answer the Admiral first. "Sir, the immediate threat has been neutralized and all human civilians are safe." "I understand that, Commander, but you've just revealed humanity's most classified military project to the entire galaxy. The Council is demanding explanations. The Zephyrian Empire is mobilizing their fleets, and half the species in known space are recalculating their strategic assessments of human capabilities. The alternative was letting children die while we waited for diplomatic solutions." Admiral Morrison nodded grimly. "I'm not questioning your tactical decision, Sarah. I'm telling you that the strategic situation has just shifted fundamentally. The galaxy now knows that humanity has been secretly developing weapons that violate Council restrictions. They're going to want explanations." Ambassador Williams broke into the conversation. "Sarah, I've been fielding calls from every major power in the galaxy for the past hour. Some are demanding that humanity be expelled from the Council immediately. Others are asking if we have more ships like the Prometheus. Do we? Sarah asked, looking at Admiral Morrison. The Admiral was quiet for a moment. That's classified information, Commander. Sir, with respect, I think classification levels just became irrelevant. You're right. Morrison sighed heavily. The Prometheus was a prototype, but we have 3 more in various stages of construction. The original plan was to reveal them gradually over the next decade as part of a diplomatic initiative to renegotiate humanity's position in the Council. Sarah felt a cold certainty settle in her stomach. And now we're going to find out whether the galaxy is ready to accept humanity as an equal military power, or whether they'll try to force us back into our previous subordinate position. The communication from the Galactic Council suddenly became more urgent, with multiple representatives demanding immediate answers to their questions. Sarah could see species she recognized and others that were completely alien, but all sharing the same expression of concern and calculation. Admiral, she said quietly, what are your orders? Morrison was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of a decision that would affect humanity's future among the stars. Return to Earth immediately, Commander. Bring the Prometheus home, and we'll face whatever comes next together. Sarah nodded and began setting course for the solar system. Behind her, the disabled Zephyrian ships grew smaller until they disappeared entirely. But she knew that the consequences of this day's actions would follow humanity for generations to come. The galaxy had wanted to keep humans safely contained as junior members of their civilization. Instead, they had just learned that humanity had never stopped being the species that fought its way to the top of Earth's food chain. The question now was what they planned to do about it.